Hey everyone, welcome to another video from JP Tech. In this video, we're taking a look at memory performance on the Ryzen R7 3700X. We're using the game World War Z today to help us check our memory scaling. I'm testing at 1440p low and ultra on the Vulkan API. All of the results in this test are taken from the best 3 runs in a row. I made sure that there was no standout results and that all of them were pretty close before averaging them. Now, first up, I tested on Ultra. At the very bottom of this table, you see the 3700X running stock clocked 3200 CL 16 XMP profile memory. This is what we're using as the baseline because you can get memory like this for dirt cheap right now. I think if you get like G-Skill Ripjaws, I think it's like $75. Yeah, you can get this memory as cheap as $75 for 16 gigs right now. And this is the memory that a lot of people want to buy, and they want to know like what they're missing out on if they were to buy more expensive memory. And really, memory prices are so good in general right now that this isn't nearly as much of an issue as it was almost a year ago now. So now we know where our baseline is. Let's go ahead and take a look at 3200 CL14 memory running on XMP profile. This is your BDI stuff. This stuff, if you get the Flare X right now, runs about $135, so it's like $60 more expensive. And as you can see, it only gives you 1% more on average and 3% on the lows, and this is on Ultra. If you go just by this, you can't say that extra $60 is really worth it or not. I did include SMT off for testing purposes. You can see that it gives you a little bit of an edge on the lows and 1% more on average, which is basically a wash. You really have to determine if it's worth resetting your computer to turn SMT off for that little bit of performance. Now, moving up to the 3200 CL16 tweaked, we can see that you can actually surpass the more expensive stuff when that's just running on its XMP profile. You can basically tie it. But again, the performance advantage is, maybe not worth it at that point, at least in this game anyways. Alright, so now we move up, we take the 3200 CL14 memory, the BDI memory, and with the DRAM calculator, we figure out that we can run 3600 CL14 with real tight subtimings. This is like the fast profile on the DRAM calculator for this memory. And this is where we start seeing a nice increase. We're seeing 7 and 8% on average and 13% on the lows. This is where, okay, we're reaching that point where like this is probably worth it. So $60 more essentially, plus a little bit of work to get the timing set right, and you can run 13% better lows and 7 or 8% better average at 1440p ultra in a game like this. Now, another thing I want to point out that's very interesting is once we tweak the memory, we're running 3600 CL14, nice subtimings. SMT off actually does slightly worse. If anything, we can just call it a tie, but not really worth turning it off at all. If anything, it hurts performance once the memory is tweaked. I do want to note too that all these memory speeds, they're matched 1-to-1 with the fabric, so 1600 and 1800 for the two 3200 and 3600 tests. And then for comparison, we have the 9900K running at 4.9 gigahertz, 3600 CL16 BDI memory running on the XMP profile. Here we're looking at basically exactly what a 3700X does, bone stock with a memory tweak on memory that costs basically the same amount of money. I do also want to note that that's another kit that might be worth buying. I know at least in the Trident's RGB that both of my kits are, they're both about the same price, and they can both do 3600 CL14, even though one's by default 3200 CL14 and one's 3600 CL16. I also want to note for the cheaper 3200 CL16 memory, that Hynix memory, I tried with the DRAM calculator to achieve a 3400 megahertz clock speed, and I couldn't either with the safe or fast profile get it stable for whatever reason. And I couldn't even get 3200 fast either. So I settled on 3200 CL16, which is it's mostly the same timings as the XMP profile, but all of the sub timings are fully custom, and that was the best that I could get with that kit. But clearly we see with the same processor and motherboard that I could achieve 3600 with pretty tight timings on better memory, so we know that it is more of a memory issue. Alright, so there you have it. For about $60 more and some time in the BIOS, and with the Ryzen DRAM calculator, you can achieve about a 13% increase in your lows and about an 8 or 9% increase in your averages in this particular title. So I'll let you guys think about those results. We're going to go ahead and move on to the low 1440p results. Alright, so now we're looking at the low results. Everything's still in the same order. If you look at all of the 3200 memory speed results, we see that there's just not a lot going on there. From the base config with the cheap memory, we're looking at 3% more on average, to the tweaked version of that memory, and up to 6% increase on the lows. You know, maybe since you already have that memory, it's worth tweaking, but it's certainly not worth running 3200 CL14 memory on the XMP profile, in my opinion, for the cost difference. You get 4% in the lows and 1 or 2% in the average. You can decide whether or not that's worth it for you. The real value, again, however, comes from taking that same BDI memory and clocking it to 3600, matching the fabric speed to that, and running the custom CL14 timings. We see all the way up to 23% increase in the lows, 16% on average, and the score increased about 15 to 16%. And once again, we see that SMT off in the upper end of the category is not really doing anything noteworthy to performance, and even with the lower memory, there was just a arguable amount of performance difference there. So that covers the SMT portion of that. Now, if we look at the 9900K at 4.9 gigahertz with the 3600 CL16 XMP memory, we're looking at actually less performance than the 3700X and the tweaked 3600 memory, and even more significantly in the lows. We saw a 22% improvement over the base setup with the better memory on Zen 2, and we only see a 5% increase over that base system with the 9900K. So this result with the preset on low actually surprised me a little bit. I expected Intel to take the cake here, even if it be by a little bit, because this putting it on low pretty much shifts the whole performance barrier to the CPU. And Intel's just had this solid track record with games, and in this scenario, at least in this game, we actually see the 3700X running stock clocks, which, mind you, in this game was like, I believe it was like 4.2 something gigahertz. So it's roughly 700 megahertz less than the Intel part, and it just has the tweaked memory, and it's actually able to surpass the Intel part, and very significantly in the low end of the frames. Now, I do want to note that I am going to look into running a better memory configuration on Intel. One barrier that does exist, though, is there, at least I don't know of a Intel DRAM calculator like there is for AMD, but the AMD one is very valuable in getting very ideal timings for your memory figured out. It's a whole different story without that tool. So I'm going to be looking into a memory tweak for the 9900K as well. I know that even running faster XMP profiled memory can have benefits in games, so we'll probably look into that as well. But really, it's looking like whatever gaming performance you can muster up in memory with the 9900K probably isn't worth it, because there's already, if you include the price of a cooler, there's almost like a $200 price difference between a 3700X and a 9900K if you're running the same price category of memory. Alright, so I'll let you guys interpret those results however you may. We're going to move on to all the results from both low and ultra, look at them all together, as well as the scores and the overall frame rate data from the testing. Now with all the data together, we can see what these actual frame rate differences look like. And on the low preset, we can see that from the worst system to the best configuration, there's like a 40 FPS difference on both the average and the low. That's tremendous. That's, you know, granted we're in the 200s anyways, but going up 40 FPS from switching your memory and configuring it right is a pretty big deal. And even when you, if you look at that compared to the actual numbers that we got on the Intel system, we're up 10 FPS on average, and we're up 32 FPS on the lows. So it's pretty obvious that the 3700 with a memory tweak is doing quite well compared to a 4.9 GHz 9900K that's also running on some pretty good memory, albeit not, you know, tweaked. Now looking at the ultra results, we see that the 3700X and 9900K basically tie here at the top, and this is showing us that we're probably running into the GPU limitation for ultra at those frame rates, that both CPUs are taking us to that boundary. But when you compare both of those results to the worst case, the cheap memory on the 3700X, you can see we went up about 17-18 FPS on average, and on the lows we went up a whole solid 20 FPS. So very considerable performance gain from there as well. And one thing that's very interesting to me actually is if you look at the middle two results, same CPU, one's on low preset, one's on ultra preset. The one on ultra is running the better memory configuration, and it's only 9 FPS lower on average, and it actually has a little bit higher low FPS, and it's just down on the high end of the frame rate. So very interesting that just a memory difference can bring performance so close between low and ultra. Alright, well that about wraps up this video. Let me know what you guys think about these results. This is not going to be the only testing that I'm going to be doing with different memory configurations on Ryzen. We're going to be evaluating a lot of games over the time to come. We're probably going to be looking at PUBG next. I do have some Battlefield follow-up videos that I owe you guys as well, so look forward to those. But let me know what you guys think about these results. I thought that it was pretty interesting to see what we could do with just a memory tweak on Ryzen and how competitive it was able to get with Intel in this game. And it'll be interesting to see if we continue this trend in other games. If you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up please. If you want to see more from JP Tech, hit subscribe. If you want to get notified, hit the bell. Until the next time guys, I'll see you around.